Can't properly honor Max Wood without a cup of coffee. As the oldest grandson, I have the honor to share some thoughts on behalf of the grandchildren about our grandpa. Everyone in this room knows Max Wood, the bandmaster, the musician, the teacher, the man of God, lifelong salvationist. But I'm not here to talk about the man that everyone knew. I'm here to talk about the man that only those of us lucky enough to call him Grandpa knew. He loved being a grandpa. It was one of the greatest joys of his life. And so he loved his grandchildren. In all of our homes growing up, he was simply known as Silly Grandpa. He was always quick with a joke and went so far out of his way to make us laugh. All of the earliest memories I have of him are all the different ways that he would make us laugh. Whenever we were with him, the cares and concerns of our daily lives would fade away, and we would know that we were in a safe place where it was not only okay to have fun, it was basically the requirement. Now I know that this is a funeral, and typically these are solemn occasions, but I'm sure that Grandpa wouldn't mind a couple of laughs. So in typical Max Wood fashion, I'm going to share some of his best material with you this morning. In the Hull family, due to the nomadic nature of Salvation Army officer families, we were not able to be with Grandma and Grandpa all the time. So when we would come to their house to visit, Grandpa's favorite gag was to come out of his bedroom in his tighty-whitey underwear and his undershirt and claim that he was ready to go wherever we were going that day. He pulled this stunt almost every Sunday morning when we were visiting. And I'm sure that the folks here at Royal Oak would have been very surprised when the band came out for preliminary music if he had actually followed through. The funny thing is that I still sometimes do this same thing with my children, and it gets them giggling on many a morning. Grandpa was also the master of the timeless pull my finger gag. He would come up with some excuse about how he had hurt his finger. And if we pulled on it, his finger would be healed. Each time we were skeptical, but we pulled it anyway, and his finger always proved to be quite the sound effects machine, if you know what I'm talking about. One of his other favorite things to do would be to go for a drive. Grandpa loved to drive. And we would be driving, and he would lose control of the car. He would say, "Oh no, the car is driving itself. I don't know what to do. I can't control it." And somehow the car always ended up at McDonald's, where we would buy ice cream cones. It was miraculous how it always ended up at McDonald's. As someone who always tried to be funny, one of my great goals in life was to get Grandpa to laugh. And as several people have mentioned, he had the most wonderful laugh. He laughed with his whole body, and when you really got him going. Now that I'm a dad, every single day I pull some gag with my kids that I learned from him. I told him last weekend when I saw him for the last time that I basically just stolen all of his best jokes and used them with my kids, and that gave him a big smile. Now, most summers growing up, our vacations each year consisted of going camping at Interlochen State Park with Grandma and Grandpa. He loved going to Interlochen, and he had his spot at the campground. It was the biggest spot, and it was right on the corner across from the baseball field, closest to the trail where you could walk across the street to go to the Arts Academy. And he would be so frustrated when they got there if somebody was in his spot, as if they should have known to leave it open for him. So he would get whatever spot was closest, and then he would look every day to watch them, see when they would pack up and leave, and then he would pack up his camper and move, and then go tell the office that, he had moved to the new spot, to his rightful place. I remember fondly all of those summers sitting around the campfire, making the trek through the woods and across the street to listen to a rehearsal or a concert at the Arts Academy. I remember him telling me stories of his childhood in Flint and all the trouble he used to get into with those Flint Citadel boys who were his lifelong friends. And then he would always say, don't do that. Thing that I just told you was really funny. We would sit and listen to Ernie Harwell call the Tiger games on the radio, and he would explain to me why my favorites like Alan Trammell and Cecil Fielder weren't quite as good as the Tiger greats like Al Kaline and Willie Horton. One of the things that Grandpa Wood was known for was he gave everybody nicknames. He had one for all of the grandkids. To him, we were Whiz, Ginsky, Silly Dillip, Sarah Barra, Angabel, Laura Bora, Drooby, Keely Bob, Pill, Tyler Bob, Big Guy, and Tricky Ricky. Anna, the youngest of us, was born 10 years ago after his health had started to fade and slip some. Grandpa never gave her a nickname, but in his memory, just for today, we'll call her Bandana. I also can't overlook Ruthie and Freddie and Genesis and Basie, who may not have shared his name or his blood, but were his grandchildren, just the same as all the rest of us. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about something that I learned from him. Now that I teach music to kids, I teach them the same things that Grandpa taught me when I was growing up. It's why improve on the best, you know? Whenever Grandma and Grandpa came to visit, Grandpa would give us a hug and he would tell us a joke, and then he would tell us to get our horns so he could give us a lesson. And I remember one time when I was 9 or 10 years old in a particular lesson, and I was struggling to play a piece out of the Blue Book because I was only concerned about whatever the note was that I was supposed to be playing at that very moment. And I remember him telling me, if you're only paying attention to the notes that you're playing, you're always going to be behind. You need to be looking ahead and be prepared for what's coming next. And from what Bill just mentioned, that I guess I wasn't the only one that learned that lesson. But that is one of the principles that I've built my life upon, not just as a musician, but as a man. Always be looking ahead, be ready for what's coming next. And I still steal that and use that with my students and tell them that they need to be looking ahead in their music, but also in their life. Another thing that he taught us was the importance of hard work and perseverance. And this lesson didn't just apply to music, it applied to life. He taught us that when times are tough, you need to buckle down and work harder. That it didn't matter if you didn't succeed as long as you tried and saw it all the way through. But maybe the most important thing that he taught us was that all the talent in the world didn't mean anything if your heart isn't right with God. That music was just a means to serve the mission. Regardless of what you are good at or passionate about, that faith comes first. Without a deeply rooted faith in God, all of your talent and hard work won't amount to much. As the Psalms say, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. There are so many lessons that he taught us as his grandchildren. He taught us how to laugh, how to be generous, how to love, how to pray, how to be a leader of a family, and how to love Jesus with every moment of your life. He taught us the proper priorities. God first, family second, then everything else. There's a lot to be said about Grandpa's legacy, but I know that the legacy he was proudest of was his family. Everywhere we go, people know us as Maxwood's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. What an honor and a privilege it is for us to carry on this legacy.